All right, B-listers, you know the drill.
This is your official spoiler alert for the episode.
If you don't want any spoilers, stop the episode now.
And if you don't care about spoilers, hold on to your seats because this episode starts
Now. Hello, fellow B-listers.
Hi, welcome to the B-Critics podcast. We're your hosts, Liz and Court.
And our guest critic for this episode is Val. Hi, Val.
Hey guys, so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited to have you. So for those of you just meeting Val is one of my best friends from college. And honestly, one of the besties for the resties. We travel together all the time. So Val, we're super excited to have you here because you honestly have the funniest takes.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here.
Val, do you want to introduce the movie?
Yeah, okay. Today we will be reviewing the second movie in the Twilight series, which is New Moon.
Woo!
Woo, woo, woo!
So I'm going to give a quick summary just in case you haven't seen it recently or you've never seen it before, which I don't know how that's possible, but here it is. All right. New Moon is the second of the Twilight Saga series and opens with Bella's birthday and all is well, except Bella is still human and constantly aging, which continues to complicate their relationship. After a rather alarming but not super shocking ending to Bella's birthday party, the Cullens decide to move away from Forks, leaving Bella behind. I told you that Jacob would get his own movie. This one is it. Jacob and Bella are childhood friends, reunited by Bella moving back to Forks. In Edward's absence, Bella spirals, turning to Jacob for warmth, companionship, and comfort, while also turning to thrills and attempt to hold on to whatever thread she still has left of Edward.
Literally so much to unpack there. Oh, Bella. We're going to get into it. Okay.
Poor babe.
So this movie,
I
know. This movie came out in 2009. It was directed by Christopher Weitz, who is a different director than the director who directed the first movie. But this movie set an all-time domestic high for opening day, actually, with like $72.7 million.
Wow.
I was kind of surprised by that. But
yeah.
I mean, these movies were quite the hype back then.
Yeah, they were.
I believe it.
I think New Moon was specifically super hyped because everyone loved Twilight. And so it was like, oh my gosh. And it came out like around a year after. So everyone was like ready for the next movie. But this movie still sits at number 12. So it's still in the top 20.
What?
For opening day. Yeah.
Okay, that's crazy.
That's absolutely like unbelievable, actually.
And none of the other Twilight movies that came out surpassed it. So it's just like still holds the record.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess like just because it's the follow-up to Twilight. Like everyone was just so excited about it.
Pumped.
Okay, well, before we get like into the movie, Val, I have to ask.
Oh God.
Are you Team Edward or Team Jacob?
Okay, I think this is so obvious. I don't even know why this is a discussion. Team Jacob all the way.
Me too, girl. Let's do it.
Wow.
Yes.
Why are you... Okay, well, perfect. We picked the perfect movie for you because this is Jacob's movie. This is his like coming out story.
I love it. Give me more.
Yeah, so... This movie, we have way less of Edward, which I'm a little sad about. He's also like the worst in this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot more Jacob. And we get to learn all about him.
Yeah.
So
wait, Courtney, are you Team Edward?
Yeah, I'm Team Edward. I can't help it.
I can't help it.
I hate that.
Why do you hate that?
He's so cold.
That would be miserable.
Yeah.
So I think like the thing is when I don't even know how old I was, like 12 reading this book. I used to love to read like period pieces, like
Mhm.
Pride and Prejudice and like garbage like that. And I just thought that like Edward was like perfect. Like he was like, you know, like a
my
true
God.
gentleman, like
my
come
God.
to
A
save
true
Bella. And I
gentleman.
just
What?
but I just like I think I got in Bella's head. Like I could relate to her.
Yeah.
Boys.
Boys, they do that.
They do crazy stuff. Okay, so New Moon.
Mm-hmm.
What about like every Twilight movie has like a significance in the name. What do we think about like the new moon significance?
Okay, I didn't even think about this until literally today. I was at work thinking about the podcast. What am I going to say? What am I going to talk about? And okay, me and Courtney are also in a book club together. And the last
Mm-hmm.
book, I was like on a symbolism roll and I was trying to find symbolism in every aspect of the book. I was like, what do y'all think about this crack? What does this mean? And so I was literally, I was doing the same thing for New Moon today when I'm supposed to be working. And I was like, New Moon, what does that even mean? That's got to mean something. And I'm thinking, I'm like, Twilight, New Moon, eclipse. We're on like a moon theme. What's going on here? And I looked up like, what does New Moon even mean? And it's the darkest point of time in like the Moon series. So I think it
Mm-hmm.
symbolizes like how Bella is so depressed. It's like a dark point in her life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
she's super fucking depressed this whole movie.
I think it's
Yeah.
also a really good pun for Jacob's lycanthropy. Like, he's a werewolf.
Yes.
And
Lycanthropy. You just threw out like a huge word.
Yeah.
What
No
was
idea
that?
what that word means. Thought we were just going to roll by that.
I'm not rolling by that. Does that mean like the fact that he turns into a werewolf?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about that too. I was like, the moon cycles have to allude to Jacob. I don't know if vampires do anything with moons, but obviously werewolves are highly connected to them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I guess that does make sense. Like it's the end of the cycle or the darkest point of the cycle, like signifying like a new beginning. So he's like
Mhm.
becoming the werewolf.
Yeah. And it's like the end
Hmm.
of Bella's new moon phase, contrasting with Jacob's like starting his transformation.
I have never thought about the like moon symbolism as hard as I've been thinking about it the past couple
Today.
of days. And like it's just kind of weird. Like I've been obsessed with these books for a long, long time and the movies and like
Mhm.
it's pretty aptly named.
Yeah. It didn't even like cross my mind until today. But she was doing something.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oops, Stephanie
So
Myers.
one like smaller thing too that I like about the movie is the soundtrack. We're gonna
10
talk
out
about
of
the soundtrack.
10.
Yeah. Yeah. Another great soundtrack. And I have a couple like highlight songs. I don't know if like y'all have any, but for me, the scene where Jacob and Bella are like the montage building the bikes together, like fixing the bikes, and it's this song called Shooting the Moon by OK Go. I've
Yeah.
like been obsessed with that song since 2009, like legitimately.
Oh.
Yeah. And then also the Victoria hunting montage scene where it's a song called
Oh.
Hearing Damage.
No, it's Tom York.
Hearing damage.
Get it, girl.
Yeah.
There's some other honorable mentions in there. So we've got I Belong to You by Muse, A White Demon
Oh,
Love
yeah.
Song, which is The Killers, and then Meet Me
Yeah.
on the Equinox, which is Death Cab for Cutie.
Meet me at
I
the
feel like I need to
Equinox.
listen to the songs like separately.
Yeah.
Like
You should.
pay more
It's a
attention. Yeah.
good soundtrack, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I need
I
to
think
revisit
all the
that.
Twilight movies have great soundtracks. Like, they just did such a good job.
Mm-hmm.
What's really funny though, so My Chemical Romance was actually asked to do a song for New Moon.
Really?
And they were like repeatedly asked and they kept saying no because they didn't think that it like fit in.
What?
Yeah.
It is kind of like more of an indie vibe, and they're like a little bit like rocker. Like
No.
no?
They
The
could have made it
Killers
work.
and Muse are both rock bands
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
Chemical Romance was just like, we don't want to be associated with the girly blah blah blah.
I don't know
But
why
they
you wouldn't
missed
want to be
out.
associated with Twilight. It like elevated everybody's careers involved with it. There are
Mhm.
They
some
missed out.
stars
Big
in this movie.
mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of who is in this movie, everybody looks a little bit different in this movie.
Jacob.
Personally, I think
Looking
everybody
great.
had a little bit of a glow up.
Oh yeah.
We're going to talk about Jacob's glow up, but not yet. So first, Bella. I think she kind of looks the same in this movie.
Yeah.
She just got like a year older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pale. Sickly.
Okay.
A little on the thin side.
Yeah.
They do special effects to make her look thinner in this movie.
Yeah.
Like throughout.
Really?
I
Yeah,
think
so
she's
that's why
supposed
she
to
looks-
look like that because she's like depressed. So she's
Yeah,
probably
she
not
stopped
eating.
eating.
Like
Yeah. So like they like she does look thinner than she actually is. Which she looks sickly like the whole
Yeah,
movie.
she looks sick.
She is. She's very depressed. Okay. And then we have I want to talk about it, but Edward's entrance scene when he like comes out of his Volvo and like walks over all like
did you know that he
must
didn't know
be.
how to drive before this movie? He had to learn how to
What?
drive. He didn't have a driver's license. How
How old
ridiculous
was
is that?
he?
Old
Stupidest
enough.
thing I've ever heard.
Old
Did
enough.
he like grow up in Manhattan or something?
I have no
Where's he
idea where he's
from?
from, but he learned to drive in Oregon. So
That's crazy.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Unless he's from like literally New York City, that's wild.
my first thought was maybe he's European or Canadian, but
Well,
he's
British,
right?
Oh.
Is he British?
Yeah. Forgot
Yeah.
about that.
Oh, well, maybe that.
Maybe
that's
he grew
why.
up in London. Don't need to drive there.
He's in the Harry Potter movies. He's in
Yeah.
the Goblet of Fire as a
I
British
know, I
person.
just forgot.
Oh, well, he
Yeah.
does an American accent very well.
Yeah.
No, his American accent is a little bad. He
I
still has
like
like
it.
hints
No, it's
of,
not.
I think it works.
It
Yeah, I
has
think
little
it's normal.
hints. Okay. I like when I can like tell he's British. Like I'm like, oh, I know.
I completely forgot he was British. Couldn't tell at all.
Wow.
It would also make sense, Courtney, that you're like specifically like intrigued by him at the start of this movie because in Twilight they like over manicured him. So like his eyebrows, like all of his features are very feminine. And then when he stepped out in New Moon, he had refused to let them wax his eyebrows, trim his facial hair differently. Like he wanted to look like a man in this movie. And
Yeah.
he does. He looks very different from the first
Way
one.
better. Like phenomenally better in this
He was like,
movie.
I look too fruity. We need some eyebrows.
We need some eyebrows.
Have you watched interviews of him? He is like a weird soul. Like
He's
he
very
is.
strange.
He's really strange. They're all kind of strange. To
So
be
is
honest.
she. She's weird too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what like makes this like crew so good.
Taylor Lautner though, still normal, still gorgeous.
Beautiful.
I
So
don't know what he's like in interviews, but I feel like he would just be like funny.
Yeah.
I think he's a little bit immature.
Yeah, exactly.
But that
I think
also
he's
like
just
makes
like
sense.
normal. Yeah.
So Jacob, I think, had the biggest transformation of anyone.
Mhm.
So Taylor Lautner was almost recast. Like they almost
Yeah, because
took
he's
him
supposed
out
to be like
and
6'5".
replaced him.
Like
Well,
in
he's
the
the biggest thing is that they were worried he wouldn't be able to put on the muscle mass. But in the like 7 months in between like filming when they ended Twilight and started filming New Moon, he put on over 30 pounds of muscle.
That's crazy.
That's why he
You
looks
can
so
tell.
good. He like takes
These
his shirt
movies-
off and you're like, oh.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy like how close together the movies were filmed. Like they're like back to
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, 7
Yeah.
months is like no time.
Yeah, it was approved on the day that Twilight opened in theaters.
Wow.
So they were like ready to go.
Makes
That's
sense.
crazy. That would have been weird if he was recast. But I guess like his
Yeah.
part in Twilight was so much smaller.
But they knew, like the books were out, they knew that he was supposed to be this big guy. You know, why would they have picked him in the first place if they thought it wasn't going to work?
Silly.
Casting directors are stupid. I don't know.
I thought he was perfect. Obviously, I mean,
Yeah, he got big, like
did.
super
Yeah.
big. Okay, so ready to get into all the stuff. We have like a lot to talk about during this
let's
movie.
do it.
And I feel like we're gonna get like all out of order, but that's okay. So the first thing is when they were in school and they were watching Romeo and Juliet. And I don't know, I just like the foreshadowing of the Romeo and Juliet, like just comparing that to Bella and Edward's relationship and kind of like basically telling you what's going to happen in this movie.
Yeah, I had kind of forgotten about the Romeo and Juliet like similarities until I rewatched this yesterday. And I feel like people really hype it up. New Moon is based off of Romeo and Juliet. And there are a lot of similarities, but I feel like there's a lot of differences too. Like the whole point of Romeo and Juliet is this like double suicide. And no one even dies at the end of New Moon. Like we keep going. You know?
Well,
but it's implied that it, in like an alternate universe, they could have.
Yeah.
Bella was being pretty reckless, and also she like makes it to him in the nick of time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like barely makes it.
Borrowed time. Yeah.
He's supposed to be super, super fast, and somehow he's in slow-mo.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Because, like, vampires aren't in any rush. They live forever.
He
was trying to die.
save him.
It had to be exactly at noon when the sun is at the highest.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And also, like Romeo and Juliet, the families were warring, but like she's not a werewolf. So like werewolf versus vampire, the family's not even involved in that.
Charlie's completely oblivious to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No one's trying to fight Charlie.
Okay.
So next we get some new characters in this movie, and we're going to talk about them a lot more like towards the end when we get to like the scene by scene. But we meet the Volturi, which is the like, I guess for lack of better description, like the governing body of the vampire universe, or like almost like the royal body, like the Pope kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But like just as a concept, like I think they're very interesting. And I also think they're cast very well. So Arrow is Michael Sheen, and I think he is creepy as hell.
Yeah.
And then Jane is Dakota Fanning.
I thought that was genius.
I think she does fabulously in that role.
Yeah. And back then I feel like she was kind of like peaking in her career too. So when she stepped out in this movie, everyone was amazed.
Yeah. What's really funny about that is she is quoted like in an interview, actually in multiple interviews, she said this. She only took the role because she wanted to get closer to Kristen Stewart, because they were doing another movie together. I forget the name of the movie, but it was about like singers, like from the female singers from the 80s. And
like the Joan Jett movie.
The Joan Jett movie. And Dakota Fanning thought by doing this role that they could like start working together so that those movies would like jive better in those movies.
So she's just
wow.
Yeah.
You need to take notes
casually
on
that. But honestly, all of the Volturi very well cast. Yeah, and they keep coming back up. But I think it's interesting that Carlisle was like buddies
a
with
part
them
of them. Yeah, like he lived with them for a while. I actually went back. I think it's very interesting to like read about or hear about the vampires' stories like before they were vampires. So I went back and read like some of the facts about the Volturi and Carlisle and like his relationship with them. And it was interesting because he has basically like been vegetarian since he was turned into a vampire, right? And when he went to live with the Volturi, they were well, first off, they didn't think it was possible. They're like, this guy cannot survive without drinking human blood. But he really like gained their respect because he kept with it and basically was unfazed by human blood, you know, only attacked animals. And yeah, he just lived
That's
such a different
interesting.
lifestyle than them, but
Mhm.
like they got along.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's super intriguing. I think Carlisle's whole story is really weird because
Hmm.
like you get to see the contrast of all the vampires in this movie too. Like at the birthday party scene when like Carlisle's so unfazed and like throughout the whole series, like he doesn't care about blood basically. He just is like
Yeah.
unfazed by it. But then to see like the contrast of like Jasper and even like Alice like kind of freaking out and being like, "Oh my
Uh-huh.
god, blood." Um it just kind of makes you realize like how strong-willed Carlisle actually is.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
And also I think it shows like the difference in ages of the vampires. You know, they're all like hundreds
Mhm.
of years old. So we just think they're all these old vampires. But Jasper's like relatively young for a
Mhm.
vampire. And so
Mhm.
he hasn't had to exercise as much like willpower as the rest of
Mhm.
them. So obviously Carlisle has the most willpower. He's a doctor. He can touch the blood and he's unfazed. But um the other members of the family are still relatively unfazed, probably just because they're older. They've done it for a long time. Jasper's a
Mhm.
baby, and he was about to lose it.
Well, and I think that's another reason that the Volturi is really interesting is because they're like super old vampires, like
Yeah,
thousands of years old. And like
yeah,
it's kind of weird, like the way that they perceive the world is so different. Like the way that they're kind of like toying with the colons and like they're like, we have plenty of time to like deal with this, you know? Like they're in no
hmm,
rush.
hmm.
Um, yeah. Okay. So next, the worst part of the movie, potentially the whole series, is Edward leaving Bella.
So
And
Literally
drama.
rips my heart out.
I know. Watching it back, I was like, why am I literally so sad right now? Like tugging at my heartstrings, but he leaves her in the woods.
Yeah, what the hell? He couldn't even bring her back to her house?
Yeah, that was crazy. And then she loses her literal mind. She loses it and chases him around the woods for hours. Um, falls down in Bella fashion, and we are introduced to Sam Yuli, who picks her up, brings her home.
He was another attractive werewolf boy.
Hmm.
Y'all are crazy.
We
Not
love all
crazy. I
the
mean,
werewolf
they're all
boys.
attractive.
They're all good looking.
Yeah. Super sad. But it paves way for us to be introduced to the Wolf Boys. And we love the Wolf Boys.
Mm-hmm.
I guess like how do y'all feel like the Wolf Boys were portrayed in the movie compared to like the book? Do you think that they like lived up to it?
Honestly, I read the book so long ago. Might have to get your take, Liz.
I think they were perfect. And I know for a fact they did a lot of work to make sure that they were going to be perfect. They went through like a boot camp. They called it Wolf Camp. And
What?
it was pretty much like a bonding camp where they taught them like how a wolf pack would interact with each other. Cause, they're so in sync. It's like, oh, they have one mind and they're all like sharing the one mind with all their bodies.
That's so
Um,
interesting.
yeah. And also at this camp, that's like where a lot of them gained like the bulk of their muscle. So, but
Mm.
they went
Oh.
to wolf camp and I think it worked. Honestly, a lot of the
Yeah.
things that they do are really subtle, but I think that's what makes it work so well. You don't even notice that like you would never know that they weren't a family
Hmm.
in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, they are
Yeah.
very cohesive. Like it
I
almost seems like obvious that they are the wolf pack before even like Bella's supposed to know. You know, she
Mhm.
doesn't find out until later, but watching it, I'm like, they're literally acting like dogs, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
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 What's really funny when you're watching the movie and Jacob's over there and he's like trying to get her to like understand. He's like, I can't tell you, but like, remember that story I told you? And she's like, oh yeah, about the pale faces. And he's like, of course, that's the part you remember. But you
Yeah.
know, she remembers the wolf part and she doesn't want it to be true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's like the worst part to me because she's so like doesn't want to accept it because Jacob's been her like normal guy. He's the one that's like steady, always there. And now it's going to be
Mhm.
super complicated. And you're like, oh
Mhm.
no.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm letting us get out of order. I feel like we need to dive deep into the birthday party scene.
Yeah.
Um
Ooh.
So
yeah,
dramatic. So
it's way too dramatic. Like
Yeah.
Edward pushes Bella into the back wall like 10 feet behind. Like you're telling me she wouldn't have like broken her ribs or like her back or
Yeah.
like something way worse than what happened to her?
Also, like, he can't just go for Jasper versus, like, throwing her on the ground,
Yeah,
you
that was
know?
crazy.
Also, okay, back on my symbolism mountain. How interesting that they chose it to be like a birthday party,
Mhm.
you know, showing that she's growing older. They can't grow older
Mm.
versus just like Christmas or Easter or like a football game or, you know, it could have
It
been
was very
anything.
Mhm.
It's a
intentional.
birthday party. Yeah.
Hmm.
That is
Yeah.
interesting. Because they talk
So,
Hmm.
about Bella getting older like the whole movie. Like that's like an
Yeah.
underlying theme the whole time.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we already talked about it being super dramatic. But one of the reasons why it was so dramatic is because so Jasper is played by Jackson Rathbone, and
Mhm.
he used method acting in that scene. And so when
That
they went to
sounds
shoot the scene, he told Emmett and Carlisle, like, you're gonna have to actually restrain me because I'm going full force at her. And you
What a
see,
psycho.
I know, you see Carlisle fall to the ground. Jackson Rathbone actually pushed him to the ground. That's real. And so and Kristen Stewart said that she was actually scared of him, like when they were
She's
filming those scenes,
terrified.
because she was like, if he broke through them, like he might actually be ready to attack her.
That is nuts.
I
Wild.
know.
My
That's so
gosh.
crazy.
Yep.
I like whenever I hear about method acting, I just think it's like impossible to imagine for me because I've never like been on a movie set, so I just don't
Yeah.
even know like how you would act around somebody like that.
How do you
Um
know when to turn it off?
When they say
Like,
cut.
I guess that makes sense.
yeah. But aren't there
But like
people who
some
like
people
stay in
do it.
character?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, like despite the cut, they just like stay in character for like all day
For
while
like
filming.
or like the whole like months, like the whole time they're
Mhm.
filming.
Like
Yeah.
Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
How
Mhm.
she was just like a bitch to everyone on set the whole time.
Mhm. Yeah, and she can just get away with it because she's method acting.
Yeah. Might need to try
Um
this.
Also, her paper cut was like really dramatic. Like
Yeah.
She's like, oh.
but it was like so bloody off of like just a little. I've never had that bloody of a paper cut.
I think I have.
Yeah, I feel like they bleed. But also, it seems like it takes her a second to realize that, like, oh shit, I'm bleeding. Like,
Mhm.
That's a
vampires, blood.
problem.
Yeah, like it seems like it doesn't like click at first. And
Yeah,
everyone
the
like
dramatic
looks at
effect.
Jasper. She gets thrown against the wall. Yeah.
She gets thrown against the wall. That's such a crazy scene. Um okay, so I think we've discussed that.
Mhm.
And we talked about Edward leaving Bella,
Yeah.
but right after that is like Bella drops into her depression that she's in for the rest of the
For
movie.
months and months and months.
Yes, and I love that scene where like it like goes in circles and like the
And she
months are
doesn't change her
turning.
clothes.
And she doesn't change her clothes. And she's like sitting staring out the window and like she's just getting sadder and sadder and I think that was very well done. I liked it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do we know where the Cullen family went when they left?
In the book, I know Edward like
He was in
tries
Europe.
to go. Well, no, I think he tries to go up to Alaska, to their family in Alaska. And then I think, if I remember correctly, and then he like fails at that and just goes like roaming around. But I don't remember where everyone else is, to be honest.
It's like
'Cause, like,
implied
he's-
that he has like a wild time while he's away from Bella.
Oh, what?
No,
What's he
I think
doing?
he's
remember
like
that
living
from the
life
book.
as low as he possibly can without her.
I don't know. I specifically remember from the book, and this could just be me like dreaming about it. I specifically remember it being kind of implied that he was doing anything and everything to get his mind off of Bella.
Yeah.
So he was kind of
Yeah.
having like a party boy era a little bit.
I feel
Honestly-
like I imagined him more like going into his primal instincts, like just going out in the woods and being a mountain man. No?
I could see him going in a party boy era because I don't think he expected to like see her again, right?
Yeah.
Like he thought it was
fully
done.
expected
Done.
that yeah, she would forget about him and move on.
I
Yeah.
refuse to believe that he went into a party boy era. That is so
You have to go back
not-
and reread the book.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to, honestly. I used to reread them all the time, and I haven't in years, but this is making me feel like I really need to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So during that time when she's like all depressed and everything, she has like nightmares and she wakes up screaming.
Her screaming
Is the worst thing I've ever heard. Ever.
Oh my god.
So unbelievable.
Her poor dad. Can we talk about Charlie for a second? How is he
Yeah.
sane?
I don't think
She
he
put
is.
him through the ringer.
I know.
Yeah.
Mhm. Every movie she puts him through the ringer. Like
Mhm.
this poor dad. Liz, were you gonna say something
I
about
was just
the
talking
month
about
turning?
the screaming
Okay.
James.
Oh, that's what you wanted to bring up, the
That's
screaming.
what I wanted to bring up because I literally was sitting there and I was like, ugh. Like, is this really what you sound like when you scream?
She has a deep voice.
Yeah,
Don't you
she kind
think?
of does.
Yeah.
Not deep. I don't know.
She has she has a pretty deep voice. Like I think that's just like how she makes noise. I don't know.
It's
Do you think
bad.
the director told her to like scream like that?
No.
I think that's the only scream she has.
That's what I'm saying. Like I think she just has a deep voice.
Well, it's bad. They should have like had someone scream for her.
A screaming coach.
Yeah, like a stand-in.
Okay. So something that definitely wasn't in the movie or in the books that was in the movie is her writing to Alice.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. I loved
just-
that.
I did too.
Yeah, I liked it too because I think it was a way for them to like directly state her thoughts. I kind of get what was going on in her head. So it's like a pretty effective way to do that.
Mhm.
They never like
Yeah.
resolved it though. Like, did Alice actually get the emails? How did Edward like not read her mind when they were talking? Like,
No, it showed that they like never made it to her. They like went to an unknown
undelivered.
sender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Alice was seeing her future. So Alice was still like keeping up
Checking
with
in
her.
on her. Yeah.
Yeah, checking in on her and obviously reporting back to Edward.
Rosalie, at least.
Oh, yeah, and yeah.
Well, I think unknowingly because he could like read her mind.
Well, he found out about the only person that said anything to him about Bella was Rosalie.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think they were like intentionally not talking to Edward about her.
Okay.
Even though everyone in the family probably knew what was going on with her.
Yeah. Okay. So Jacob and Bella's relationship like becomes a thing, blossoms in this movie.
He's
And is
magical.
like really solidified. And the reason is because when Bella is like super depressed, like the whole movie, she discovers that the only way that she can like see Edward is if she does like really reckless stuff, and like he pops up like kind of as like a fantasy in her head or like a I don't know, like a apparition or whatever.
He's like
and
a
is
figment
like
of her imagination.
yeah, and is like, hey,
Imaginary
stop being
friend.
reckless, like you promised me you weren't going to do this. And so she just like tries to be really reckless all the time. And so it starts with the scene where she's hanging out with Jessica, and she like they go watch like a movie.
Wait,
and
time
then
out. Jessica, okay, Anna Kendrick is
yeah,
phenomenal as Jessica,
yeah,
Yes.
first of all.
Yes. I forgot she was in
Also,
it.
yeah, she improvs all of her lines.
What?
what?
All of her lines are improv.
That's wild. How do you
That's
even
crazy
do that?
wild.
The director like told them, okay, like here's what's gonna happen in this scene, and she just like went with it. So like that whole time that she's like talking to Bella about the zombie movies and Bella's not paying attention, Anna Kendrick is just talking.
Just rambling on.
Yeah.
That's so
I
interesting.
wonder if directors like that or hate that.
They told her to do that.
Yeah, I feel like they wanted
They
it to
gave her
be like
creative liberty.
Natural.
as natural and like conversational as possible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think like both Mike and Jessica, like their characters are amazing in this movie. And we'll get into
Mhm.
Mike a lot more, but like Jessica, Anna Kendrick provides like a lot of comedic relief in this moment to me, because like you're just like the whole time like what the fuck is going on with Bella? And like I think she really just like speaks to that, like kind of what is going on in the audience's mind is like what's going on in her mind. So I don't know if y'all have anything to say about the biker scene. I don't have too much to say. I think it's weird and creepy.
I agree.
Yeah, I would have run the other way.
Me too. And honestly, I don't blame Jess for being like weirded out by Bella. Like I would just be like, I don't want to be part of your world anymore. No, thank you.
Whatever's
No,
going
there
on
is
with you.
no chance that I would hang out with her. She would scare me.
Yeah. So then Bella gets the bikes, and she brings them to Jacob, which I think is amazing. And I think it's funny, this whole movie, that like Bella tries to use like her flirty powers on like a younger Jacob to like get him to hang out with her, basically.
Yeah, which he totally wants to do anyways. So she
Yeah,
doesn't even need to
yeah.
act like that.
She's super cringy too when she
Yeah,
does
it's
it.
really bad. It's really bad.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What hurt me the most is knowing that the whole time Jacob knew that she was only there because he knew how to fix up the bikes.
Yeah, it is really depressing when you know, like you're watching it and like and you're like, oh, he still wants to be with her anyway.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. But he doesn't care. He just like jumps into like helping her with the bikes and pretty much like becomes her BFF in this movie. And I think it's really sweet.
Yeah.
Mhm. I think it's cute too, especially since they were so close when they were little. And they kind of grew apart. Like his family views her as family and she views them as family. So it's like comforting, even though she doesn't want to be with him romantically. It's cute.
Yeah.
It is cute.
I want to talk about the first time that she really like notices him as more than just like kind of the neighbor boy, where she's like,
Okay.
oh, okay. So she
Yeah.
does like the first time she really notices him as like potentially someone that she could like be with is when she hurts herself, when she's like they're riding the bikes and she falls off and he like pulls his shirt off really quick to like stop the bleeding on her
What a
head and she's
scene.
like, you're kind of beautiful. And he's like, you hit your head pretty hard. But it's like
Yeah.
in that moment that you like understand that she's like starting to like something starting to click with her
Mhm.
on the Jacob side. And that's
Mhm.
the point too where she starts writing to Alice saying like I don't see Edward anymore, and
Mhm.
he's like starting to fade.
Oh yeah, that is interesting. She stops seeing Edward. Like Jacob has kind of taken Edward's place. Edward used to have to tell her, "Don't do this. This is dumb. You could get hurt." But now Jacob's there. He's going to protect her if she gets hurt. She goes cliff diving, and Jacob's there to pull her off the water. You know,
Almost
like
What
she
would she do
doesn't.
without him?
she would literally
She'd
I
be
don't know where she would
gone.
be.
Yeah, she would. But that's the point too when like Charlie gives Bella advice. He says like sometimes you got to learn to love what's good for you. And so I think that's interesting too, because like Jacob is kind of really good for her, and Edward is just really not.
At least at that point in time, Jacob is good for her.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so one other scene too that I really love with Jacob is the face punch movie scene when Jacob and Mike both go to the movies with Bella. That's one of my favorite scenes in this whole movie. And I like specifically love the part too where like they're in the theater and there's like Mike on one side with his hand on the like the armrest, and then there's Jacob on the other side, and Bella's just sitting there in the middle like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself
Can't
into?
go anywhere.
And the contrast of like Jacob on one side just like laughing at the whole movie and Mike just like getting queasy the whole time too.
Yes. I loved when the movie ended and Mike goes to literally vomit. And Jacob's like, it wasn't even bad. That was great.
And he calls him a marshmallow. He's like, oh, what a marshmallow.
But Jacob and Bella have like a little tender moment too. Like Jacob promises her he'll never leave her.
Yeah, but always before that, it's like the first time that she like verbally tells him like it's never gonna happen. Where he's like holding her hand and she like pulls her hand away and he's like, I can't hold your hand. And she's like, oh, you can, but I know that it means something different to you than it means to me. And that's like the first time that he gets like the like wave of like, oh, but he keeps coming.
Poor babe.
Well, he's always gonna keep coming because he's always waiting out for Renesmee. He just doesn't know it.
Yeah.
But we will not be talking about that in this episode. For another time. But yeah, that scene is interesting to me. And then you get the glimpse of Jacob like having a hot flash and like being angry, and you know something's up with him.
Yeah. And then Bella sees the wolves for the first time, not knowing that Jacob is one yet. She sees them.
Okay. That scene is crazy. Like when I guess there's a lot to talk about. So we have the scene with Laurent first. So we can talk about that. So she's like doesn't have Jacob anymore, and she goes like venturing to the meadow as like a last ditch effort to talk to Edward. And then she comes across Laurent, and you're just like sitting there like, oh yeah, I forgot about this whole like story about Victoria and Laurent going on the side. And I honestly don't know how Bella didn't die in that scene.
I know, that was so scary. Like literally no one, pure luck that she was saved.
Yeah. Also, I've never thought that scene was like actually scary, but watching it this time, like when they keep panning away from Laurent and when they keep coming back and he's like closer and closer and closer to Bella, I'm like, what the fuck? Is this a horror movie?
Yes.
And you know that she's scared because she sees Edward.
And,
and Edward's telling her what she knows she's supposed to do. And Laurent's just like not buying it at all.
True. I forgot we had a big break from Edward until then.
Yeah. So I think that's the first time she sees the wolves, correct?
Yeah, that's the first time she sees them and they're saving her. But she does have like a moment where her and Jacob are like looking at each other. Jacob wolf.
Yes. You can tell there's a little recognition there.
Yeah.
They like zoom in on his eye. Yeah.
But then she really sees Jacob become a wolf. She's like chasing Jacob down. She's like, why won't you hang out with me? Like she keeps calling. She goes to his house. And the scene where like one of the other boys turns into a wolf because he gets mad. And she like turns around and runs and is like, Jacob, like look out. And then like he turns into a wolf.
He like flies over her head.
It's like, I've got this. And they brawl like little boys do when they get upset.
I do think like it was really effective, like how they portrayed the wolves. Like, I don't know, it was just way more realistic, like in the movies than it was in the books. I think like you could just tell, like, oh, like they're just boys, like
Mm-hmm.
being boys, like friends, and like brothers in the sense of like how wolves are brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm,
So
okay.
then we find out that Victoria's back. The wolves have been tracking her down,
Yeah.
and Bella's not phased, not worried about it.
No, she got other stuff
And
on her
she
mind.
goes to go cliff diving because she's got to have her Edward fix.
She is literally insane this whole movie. Like,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll give y'all this. Like, in this moment, I'm like, why don't you just go be with Jacob? Like,
Yeah.
stop being
Yeah.
crazy and just like be
He's
happy
literally
for
right
like
there. He's
1 second.
begging for it. Like,
He's so dang
Yeah.
cute. He can protect her.
he's
She's
a
got
literal
the
golden retriever.
yes. She's still got the
Mhm.
mystical thing going on if she's trying to date like a magical creature, you know? Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
perfect.
I like too how they incorporate Victoria into this scene, like so obviously. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think in the
Yeah.
book it's in there too, but it's not like explicitly stated that it's Victoria.
Yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't
She
it
sees
say
like the
like there's like
flames.
flashes of red going
Mm-hmm.
through
Mhm.
the woods? Yeah,
Mhm.
in the book.
Um
She
yes, it
also
does. But
doesn't like almost drown in the book. In the book, I believe she's like jumping with the werewolf boys, and Jacob just like pulls her out of the water afterwards. She doesn't almost
yeah.
drown.
Yeah.
They did that
Mm,
like completely for drama in the movie.
Yeah, that's
mm.
so true. Well, it worked. And it was
Yeah.
very believable because she was being drama this whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much
So
drama.
in the drowning scene, so Bella's like actually Kristen Stewart's in the water. She's actually underwater. They're actually filming her underwater.
It was
And
cold.
well, she's in a swimming pool. But
Oh.
at one point, the director wanted her to like have these weights in her pockets to like hold her down under the water.
Yeah.
And Kristen Stewart was
It's-
like, I don't know about that. And so the director was like, well, let me do it first, like, and show you how to do it. And apparently he had like a panic attack. And he was like, no, 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 we
Yeah.
can't do that. I don't know how they did it, but they didn't do it the original way it was supposed to be done. She probably just was like, I'll just go underwater.
So he
Yeah.
wanted weights to make it actually seem like she was like fighting.
Falling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Falling and fighting, trying to
Yeah,
get
I
Wow.
back
would not
up.
do that. That's
Mhm.
terrifying.
Hate that.
Yeah.
They
Glad
probably
you
had
tried it
like
first.
Yeah.
scuba people in there with her. Like I'm sure she was very safe, but like
Yeah.
Doesn't make it better.
I
Still
don't know. That's very,
scary.
very scary to me.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So after that, I don't know, is there anything else we need to talk about with like the Wolf Boys? I think we've covered a lot.
Okay, we didn't talk about the fiance with the
Oh yeah.
scratches.
Emily.
Do
Mm-hmm.
we know how she got that?
Sam.
Who
Yeah.
he did that to her?
Yeah. That's why they're
Mhm.
like I think they actually mention it.
Jacob
Like
explains
Jacob
it when
says,
he's talking about
yeah.
imprinting, when he's telling her what imprinting
Mm.
is.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Well, and when he's telling Bella like I can't get like we can't do this because like look at Emily, like all it took was Sam
Mhm.
getting mad like one time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He lost his temper and like she was standing too close by.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah. But I like how they like referred to her as like the wolf girl and
Mhm.
Bella was like the vampire girl. Okay. So now we're gonna get to the good stuff, like my favorite part of the movie, because Edward is going to make a reappearance.
Of course.
But this is when like the true like Jacob versus Edward, I guess, like dynamic really starts to form because Jacob starts making comments about Edward and like he's not good for you, and we get a lot of that. But it starts with Alice appearing out of nowhere, which I thought was interesting. I thought that was like really well done how they were doing the writing to Alice, and then Alice is the one that like appeared.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have like Jacob and Alice together. I like in this scene how Alice is like, Bella, like, why do you smell like a wet dog?
That was so funny.
Yeah. I think Alice is also like super cool in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like just
Yeah,
like way
I
too
think so
cool.
too. Yeah. And I like seeing like her and Bella's relationship aside from Edward too. I think that was kind of special. Like
Yeah,
she
I
definitely
agree.
cares for Bella, just, whether Edward's in the
On
picture
her
or
own.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And then the phone call where Edward calls the house and Jacob answers and says that they're going to the funeral for Harry Clearwater. But he doesn't specify. So Edward very obviously thinks that he's talking about Bella.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was not a good move on Jacob's part.
Yeah.
It's so silly to me. And I know we're not talking about the other movies right now. They do that to each other constantly throughout the entire series, make these little comments that they know the other one is going to get so hurt by or so upset by, and they just continue to do it. Edward is how old? 109? And he's acting this way? Like, come on. They're acting like
Yeah.
children the whole time. And I get it. Like, boys get weird about women, whatever. Grow up, both of you.
Yeah. Like Edward's acting like a true high schooler.
Yeah.
Jacob has an excuse.
Yes.
Edward,
Jacob actually is
come on.
16.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is like where it really takes shape.
Mm-hmm.
And it only, like Liz, to your point, it's only just going to continue throughout the rest of the series. So then Bella, like without hesitation, goes with Alice to Italy. And Alice performs a little bit of Grand Theft Auto. That's pretty cool. And Bella has to run across the San Marcos Square to save Edward.
Yeah, we didn't talk about what Edward was about to do.
Oh, well, I mean, he's about to go kill himself.
Well, he's about to expose himself so that he's exposing himself to the humans with his shimmery, beautiful skin during like this festival. Of course, there's the festival going on, right? He's going to expose himself during the festival. There's all these people around, and the Volturi will have no reason but to end his life.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too that they like showed him trying to get them to just kill him, and they were like, no, because your gifts are too like amazing.
Yeah, you're too powerful.
Yeah.
They wanted him for themselves.
Yeah.
And Bella makes it just in time.
I literally wrote down, no fucking way Bella makes it to Edward in 5 minutes. No way. There's no way.
I was thinking the same thing.
She has
no earthly idea. She has
where
no
he
idea where he is. She's never been to the square before. She's probably never left the US before. And somehow she navigates this like Italian village with a million people dressed up in
running
red coats
uphill.
and finds him.
Like,
yeah.
In the book, she definitely falls down like a lot on that run, and they just
she
like
has
don't
more than
show
5
that.
minutes too. Like,
yeah, she's running a lot.
Yeah.
I think the scene's like pretty well done. Like she looks like she's in a panic. She runs through a fountain. Like it's a lot.
The fountain.
And so she makes it to Edward, and he thinks he's like entered heaven, and that scene is so
except he doesn't think he's gonna
comical.
go to heaven. So
yeah, but whatever. I was like, oh, heaven.
He's like, oh, Bella's here. I must have died.
But in fact, he did not die.
He did not.
And he actually gets taken. They all get taken down into the chambers with the Volturi. And Alice joins them at this point too. And so this is where we like get our first like real glimpses at like what the Volturi is capable of and like why they're really powerful. And so you see a couple of their powers. And so I think you just see Arrow and Jane's powers. And so Arrow can read minds by like holding your hand, and he can do more than Edward, he can like read your whole story basically.
Yeah,
Like he
not
gets
just
like
your
all the
thoughts,
thoughts you've ever had.
everything you've ever seen, interacted with,
Yeah.
everything.
But he's impressed that Edward doesn't have to, like, Arrow has to touch someone. And I think he's very impressed that Edward can just be around someone
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
and
he's
do
really
it.
jealous
Maybe to a
of
lesser
Edward.
extent, but yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Jane, when like she can inflict pain, like mental
Mhm.
pain
Mhm.
on people at will. And
True
like kind of a
evil.
little fight scene breaks out too.
That
which
fight
is
scene was
interesting.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good scene.
I
like that
liked
whole
it.
scene is really good.
It reminded
Mhm.
me of Harry Potter when the Death Eaters are like traveling and they're like
The sound effects.
Like in the end, like when they're
like
They just
traveling
always travel
around.
like that. Yeah.
What's it called? Like evaporating?
operating. Okay, so we're not going to get into Harry Potter, but I'll just do like a little snippet. That is so messed up that they do that in the Harry Potter movies. I'm not going to lie. It's fake. It's fake. In the
The
Harry
whole
Potter
thing's
universe,
fake, Court.
I know, but in the Harry Potter universe, you don't like puff around with smoke and make sounds. You apparate, and it's like a crack, like a really loud crack, and you apparate from point A to point B, and that's how it works, and that's it. And the Death Eaters don't just get some like magical smoky power that no one else gets.
I'm sorry I brought it up, but that's what it reminded me of because they were kind of like they were trying to show how fast the vampires are and probably what it looked like to Bella. And it just
Yeah.
like reminded me so much of what was used in Harry Potter. And
Yeah.
like, did the Harry Potter movies come out around the same time? Like, was that like
A little
No,
some
they were
new
before.
thing? Or okay,
They were before.
so
Earlier
they must
2000s.
have stolen it.
Must have.
Well, I
But-
mean, this was kind of the era of like Harry Potter finishing up, like Twilight, Hunger Games. Like they're all kind of like similar effects wise. But this one is definitely fantasy in the same way that Harry Potter is. And so I could understand the comparison, but it just struck a chord.
Yeah. And I actually, when I was just reading more about the Volturi, because I was interested in them, I was reading about Jane. And I thought it was interesting. So when we see her power, we see her like making people feel pain, right? Like that's how we understand her power. And she is written about as one of the most powerful vampires there is. Her and her brother, they're regarded as two of the most powerful vampires there are. And they had their powers before they turned into vampires, so they had them like even as little kids, like toddlers.
Yeah.
But when she was younger, like before she changed, she could influence people negatively but also positively. And I don't think it was like quite as intense. But people who were nice to her, good things happened to them. People who were mean to her, bad things happened to them. But they were labeled as witches, her and her brother. So they were like literally in the process of like being burned, like they did to witches, when Arrow came and saved them. So she like harnessed the pain that she felt while she was literally being burned, and that's what she inflicts on people as a vampire. So like it's all mental, but they feel like they're being burned. Yeah. I didn't know that, but I found that so interesting.
That
Yeah.
is
and
interesting.
That's why Bella's like immune to it though, because it's like a totally mental thing. So like we'll get into it more like in a later episodes when we like explore Bella's, they allude to it, but like her potential. But she's like immune to all of the mental things. And so that's why like Arrow can't read her, Edward can't read her, and Jane can't affect her. Her screaming, though, if Jane could have affected her, then
yeah, we would have gotten another dose of that.
Yeah. So they finally get to leave because they agree that, or Alice shows Arrow that like Bella will be a vampire one day. So Edward loses on that front. But
For
they
the
get
first
to leave.
time. He loses multiple times, but that's the first time.
Yeah, for sure. this movie is a big L for Edward, just in general. Like, not good for him. And then the last bit about them, like when they're leaving, is when like the tour group goes in to their death, to the Volturi chamber.
Oh yeah.
Crazy. Okay. So there's just a couple more things to talk about, like kind of at the wrap up of the movie. But one I want to make sure that we mention is Rosalie's redemption arc, kind of at the end. Because I feel like in the first movie, like Rosalie was so hated because she was like so anti-Bella the whole time.
Mhm.
And then like in this movie, you finally get the context as to why. Like, because she says, and this is the second time Edward loses, Liz, I think you're alluding to, like, because Bella puts it up to a vote with the group, like who's okay with me being changed, basically.
Who's going to support
And
me through my transition?
yeah, and Rosalie says no, like I can't do that because like I would never want that for myself. And so
Yeah.
She says specifically that she wishes somebody had been there to vote no for her.
Yeah. And so I feel like she, at least in my mind, I don't know if y'all feel this way, but I feel like that was like a point of redemption for her.
Yeah, I think so too. How did Rosalie die or turn into a vampire?
I don't know.
Carlisle changed her because she got
they do show it in this
beaten.
movie.
They don't show it, but she got beaten by
Doesn't
like her husband's friends. So she's like about to get married, and then like she essentially gets raped and like near death, and then Carlisle comes and saves her because he thinks she would be a good mate for Bella, and then they're obviously not good mates
for Bella.
I mean, for Edward. Sorry.
I thought Rosalie was the
mind.
first one he saved. So she said that he smelled the blood and came and saved her. I thought Rosalie was the first one.
No, he saved Edward first, and then he saved Rosalie in an attempt to get Edward a mate. I think it was actually Edward, Esme, Rosalie.
Esme. Yeah.
You can look it up.
I am. You can keep talking.
Yeah, so the last thing I want to talk about is just like the very end of the movie, which I think is amazing. But Edward's conditioned to changing Bella himself, because like Bella really, really wants him to be the one to change her. And he says, "Marry me." And like at the very end of the movie, you just get her like,
yeah, that was cute. Kind of brought it full circle. We're not depressed Bella anymore.
Yeah, no more depressed Bella. We hate depressed Bella.
Yeah,
they're also 18.
Yeah, that's why it's like so hard for Bella, because her parents got married so young and it like ended so not great. So yeah. Liz, did you figure out the order?
Yeah, it's Edward, Esme, Rosalie, Emmett, and then Alice and Jasper came to live with the family separately.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's like everything. Like I think we've talked about everything. I don't know if we missed anything. Is there anything that I like forgot to bring up that y'all really want to talk about?
Looking at my notes.
I don't think I have anything else.
Oh, okay. I have a fun fact about me, not the book.
Okay. Yeah.
But okay, in middle school, my family took a trip to the Olympic Peninsula to see like nature, and we stayed in Forks, and it was like literally 2008. The movies hadn't come out yet. I think the movies were coming out and the books were out. And everyone was crazy. Like, yes, everyone was hyped up about this vampire story based in Forks. I mean, Forks is this tiny little town. Yeah. And so we were like, what is this vampire thing everyone's talking about? I was like high-key a little freaked out. I was probably like 11 or 12, like, are there vampires here?
Are there not? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I'm sure. But I got the books while we were there. And then the movies came out shortly after. And yeah.
That's wild. That's such a fun fact.
I know. Isn't that crazy? Like, who goes to Forks?
I might be
going
to
a lot
Forks
of people go to Forks. I think it's like a
Well,
tourist spot now.
pre-movies, we
Yeah.
went to Forks.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
Did it
Only if
live
you were
up to
going to
the
like
dreary
Olympic National Park. Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
It
yeah,
lived up to it.
definitely.
Nice and rainy
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yucky.
I feel like the whole state's like that.
Yeah. That's so cool. I'm jealous. I want to go.
hmm
Okay.
But other than
Well,
that, I think we're good.
yeah.
Woo.
I think the only scene that we didn't talk about that I like totally forgot about is the very opening scene when Bella is like she's having a dream and she's
She's
in the meadow with
old.
Edward and she
Yeah.
sees her gran and it's really just her.
Oh yeah.
I liked that scene. But kind of
It
back to
didn't
your
leave an
symbolism
impression
point.
on me.
Really?
Well,
No.
it's interesting because like she doesn't grow old. You know, she would
No.
only be getting old if she wasn't going to be turned into a vampire, which
Yeah.
spoiler alert, we know that she does. So,
Well,
it's kind of interesting why they did that.
yeah, and that's kind of like the whole theme of this movie too. Like it's all about her aging and like her and Edward having this like tiff about her life and her soul and like what's going to happen to it.
Mhm.
And so I think that's an interesting beginning to it ending with him being like, "Okay, fine, marry me."
Coercion.
I would say yes.
I'd go after Jacob.
We'd be fighting for him, Val.
Okay. He's literally
Scrapping in the
16.
corner.
He's literally 16 in this movie. Don't forget that.
Taylor
Okay, but
Lautner
he's not
is
anymore.
there, yeah.
No, he's not. He's definitely older than us because he was in Shark Boy and Lava Girl when we were
Yeah.
like 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now we have to rate the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Val, you're going to rate it first. As a reminder, we use letterbox ratings, which is just 0 to 5 stars with half-star increments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would say it's a 5 out of 5. I like it. I
course.
think it's great. Yeah. I like when series like this really have like a lot of background, a lot of details. Like you can read about the history of the characters like I was
Mhm.
talking about. Love it. A+.
Nice. Okay, Liz.
I'm so glad you liked it. I
Yeah,
also
me
gave it a
too.
5 out of 5.
Wow.
New Moon was my favorite book, and the movie is my favorite movie also in the series. And I'm not gonna like toot my own horn, but I kind of am. That's not even the right word to say, but New Moon is Robert Pattinson's favorite of the books as well. So
Oh.
yeah. But yeah, my fave, 10 out of 10. I think they did 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5. I think they did just a fantastic job, not only like keeping true to the books, because there's only a few things that they changed, but also this one, while the content of it was a lot more sad and dark, they lightened the tone of the
Yeah.
movie. And I think that did a lot to
Yeah.
just keep it from being this like sad suck fest kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Boo.
And
I'm just kidding.
well,
4.5. Round up, Court. Round up.
okay. Well, there's not enough Edward in this movie, and also he's like horrible the
fair.
whole movie.
That's
Like
fair.
I hate him. Like I literally like hate him in this movie.
Yeah, me too.
I would be hard pressed to make any of the Twilight movies like a 5 out of 5. Like I love them, but I mean we'll see. But yeah. I mean a 4 out of 5 is like a pretty respectable score, I think.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. Val, thank you so much for joining. I loved all the Volturi facts that you brought and all the
Yes.
personal fun facts that you shared. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us. We loved having you.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah, it was super fun. You'll have to come on again.
Yes.
Okay. So that's it. So we're gonna sign off. You can find us on all of our socials, Twitter, Insta, TikTok, at b-criticspodcast.
And thank you so much for checking us out. We'd appreciate it if you could leave us a rating or review. And if you really like the podcast, maybe you'll even subscribe and follow. I don't know. You can find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.
And then check out our website, bcritic's.com, or find all of these links on our Linktree in the episode show notes.
That's it. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.